She didn't leave because you were wrong. She left because you were light. Your words carried no weight. Your presence echoed no consequence. You were a breeze, not a storm. And a woman, a real woman, she doesn't anchor herself to something that drifts. In this life, being right is a consolation prize for the weak. It's what cowards cling to when they've already lost. But I was right, they cry, as if justice ever meant power, as if truth alone ever kept a kingdom together. Number power keeps it, and you, mio ragazzo, had none. Let me paint it for you. She came into your life like a storm, testing your structure, your resolve, your depth. She didn't want a dance partner, she wanted a fortress. And instead of steel, she found wet paper. You bent, you folded, you explained, justified, reasoned. You thought she'd appreciate your vulnerability, your emotional transparency, your sensitivity. But what she saw was a man begging to be understood, not followed. She saw a man who reacted to her emotions instead of anchoring hers. She saw a man afraid to lead her, afraid to confront her, afraid to lose her. That fear, it bled from your eyes like a coward's confession. Let me be clear. You could have been right about every single argument. You could have had logic on your side, morality in your pocket, and heaven nodding in approval. It wouldn't have mattered, because she didn't leave to protest your logic. She left because you were a man she could walk away from, and no woman stays where she can walk away easy. You didn't need to be flawless. You didn't even need to win. You needed to be immovable. A man whose energy says, if you leave, it'll be your loss. But I won't break, I won't beg, I won't chase, because I know what I am. But you broke, you begged, you chased. And in doing so, you confirmed every doubt she ever had about you. Because when you chase, you admit, I need you more than you need me. And the second you do that, you flip the throne upside down and offer her the crown. She didn't want that crown. She wanted a king. And instead, she saw a clown, painted in fear, decorated in apologies, juggling feelings in the hopes of earning her grace. You thought the problem was your actions. It wasn't. It was your essence, your lack of gravity, your inability to make her feel safe, certain, led. That's what she craved, and that's what she never saw. She left because the ground shook beneath her, and not because you made it shake, but because it was too soft to carry her weight. There's a dangerous delusion that lives inside many men, a lie whispered by the ego, disguised as integrity. It says, if I was right, then I didn't lose. But let me tell you something no one else will, factia a factia. Being right doesn't make you strong. And in this world, only strength decides who keeps the crown. You stood there, heart broken and hands trembling, clutching your version of the truth like a holy relic. But I did nothing wrong, you said. She overreacted. She misunderstood me. Maybe you're right. Maybe she was irrational, impulsive, even cruel, but it doesn't change the verdict. She left. You stayed, alone, and no jury of moral opinion will change that outcome. You want justice? You want to win because you were correct? This isn't a courtroom. This is life. And in life, power isn't awarded by righteousness. It's seized through presence, through dominance, through certainty. The lion doesn't argue with the hyena about whose teeth are sharper. He just rips the throat and walks away. Let me ask you something, uomo mio. What did you think would happen when you clung to your correctness like a child holding a broken toy? Did you think she would wake up one day, realize her mistake, and come back out of guilt? You waited for her to feel sorry. You waited for her to miss your kindness. You waited for your virtue to echo in her absence and call her home. But virtue without strength is ornamental. It's a paper sword. She doesn't remember your kindness. She remembers your weakness. I've seen men confuse victimhood for nobility. They think that by showing how much they suffered, how faithful they remained, how morally superior they were, they'll earn back respect. But respect isn't earned through pain. It's earned through presence, through command, through being the man who doesn't explain himself because the air around him says, "I am not to be questioned." Instead, you explained everything. You told her your intentions. You pleaded your point of view. You cried in front of her, thinking that would prove your depth. But let me tell you what she saw: a man trying to be understood instead of a man worth being followed. A man drowning in his own sensitivity, searching for validation. That's not leadership. That's dependency. And a woman doesn't desire to be your therapist, boy. She wants a force, something immovable, something that silences chaos with a glance, not a monologue. You thought your emotional honesty was strength. Emotional honesty without control is just public bleeding. You want to be transparent? Be transparent to your mirror, not your woman. She's not there to heal you. She's there to feel you. And if what she feels is confusion, hesitation, guilt, or apology, she leaves. Now understand me, because this part will hurt. She left because your logic made sense, but your energy did not. You were right, yes, but you were not felt. And women, my friend, do not love with logic. They love through instinct, through silence, through presence, through the unspoken gravity that says, "I can handle you, even when you can't handle yourself," but you couldn't handle her or yourself. And no amount of righteousness can perfume that kind of rot. You lost not because you failed morally. You lost because you weren't dangerous. You weren't a threat to her walking away. You were just correct. And correct is boring. Correct is forgettable. Correct doesn't keep a woman. Power does. So wipe the tears, burn the diary, throw away the idea that fairness entitles you to her loyalty. This isn't church. This is war. And in war, the man who survives isn't the one who complains about injustice. It's the one who commands the room with nothing but his silence. Let that sink in. Let me tell you a little story, figlio mio, one that plays out in the shadows of every home where a man confuses gentleness with virtue. There was once a lion and a lamb who lived under the same roof. The lion had been wounded, once mighty, now cautious, hiding his claws behind a facade of peace. He thought if he became softer, quieter, less intimidating, he would be more lovable, more acceptable. The lamb, on the other hand, admired him. At first, she came close, drawn by the promise of his power, his silence, his eyes that had seen blood. She wanted the lion not because he was kind, but because he could be violent, and chose not to be. That distinction, it's everything. But over time, the lion began to act more like her. He smiled more. He softened his voice. He apologized for his roars. He asked what she wanted for dinner, for direction, for approval. He started to believe that love was about appeasing her, not commanding the space. And the lamb, she began to fear something, not the lion, but the absence of the lion. Because a woman doesn't fall in love with the lion's roar. She falls in love with the fact that he can roar and doesn't. She wants to know that if the world turns cruel, the man beside her becomes crueler. That if fire rains from the sky, he doesn't pray, he burns back. But when she looked into his eyes, she no longer saw fire. She saw compromise, negotiation. She saw a man neutered by his own desire to be liked. And slowly, almost imperceptibly, the respect died. You see, a lion without teeth is just a large cat. He may still have the mane, but not the myth. And once the myth is broken, so is the spell. Let me explain something you were never taught. A woman doesn't want you to be harmless. She wants you to be in control of your violence. There's a difference. She wants to feel that you could destroy something, but you don't. That you could dominate the world, but you choose to lead her instead. It's the restraint, not the weakness, That earns her surrender. But what you gave her was not restraint. It was hesitation, doubt, softness masquerading as wisdom. You told yourself, "I'm being emotionally intelligent." She saw a man second-guessing himself. You thought, "I'm being supportive." She felt like she had to carry the weight of the relationship. You confused peace for passivity. And in doing so, you forced her into the role of the lion, while you curled up beside her like a lamb. And do you know what happens when a woman is forced to become the lion in her own home? She loses desire. She loses trust. She starts to see you not as a man, but as another thing she has to protect herself from. Not physically, emotionally, spiritually. That's when she starts looking elsewhere, not for attention, not for sex, not for escape, but for gravity, for a man who pulls her back into her feminine, one who doesn't flinch when challenged, one who commands her chaos without trembling, one who reminds her of her place, not through words, but through presence. So no, she didn't leave because you were unkind. She left because you forgot you were the lion, because you wore the skin of a lamb, hoping it would keep her close. But women don't stay for safety. They stay for security, and there's a difference. Safety says, "You're okay." Security says, "Nothing touches you unless it goes through me." And you, Fratello, became something she could touch too easily. That's not love. That's forgettable. That's soft meat for harder wolves. Remember this. When a woman leaves, it's rarely because you didn't love her right. It's because you didn't scare the world enough to make her feel protected. You thought she wanted romance. You thought she wanted flowers, long talks, emotional transparency. You thought if you showed her how devoted you were, how available, how open, how agreeable, she would crown you the king of her heart. But she didn't want a subject, she wanted a sovereign. Let me tell you the truth that breaks most men. She didn't need more love, she needed more direction. And you couldn't give her that because you didn't even know where you were going. A woman doesn't abandon a man who leads with clarity, who commands with silence, who walks with purpose. She may challenge him, she may test him, but she won't walk away from him, because no matter how chaotic she becomes, he remains unchanged, untouched, unshakable. You gave her your time, your words, your tears, but none of it meant anything because you weren't leading. And don't confuse management with leadership. You planned things, sure. You made dinner reservations. You remembered her birthday. You picked the right wine. Bravo. But did you lead her spirit? Did she feel your inner compass and instinctively fall into orbit around you? Or did she feel like she had to steer, decide, protect, control? You wanted to be her partner, but she needed a man whose steps she could trust. Not because he demanded loyalty, but because his direction made her want to follow. She didn't leave because she wanted to be the leader. That's another lie men tell themselves when they lose women. She was too dominant, too masculine. She became that way because you created a vacuum, and nature hates a vacuum, especially feminine nature. When she saw indecision in your eyes, she filled it with her commands. When she saw fear in your body, she stiffened hers. When she felt your neediness, she became cold, not out of cruelty, but survival. Because no woman wants to be more emotionally stable than her man. It makes her feel alone, unsafe, tired. What she really wanted was to be led. She wanted to surrender, not to a tyrant, not to a narcissist, but to a calm, capable king, one who doesn't raise his voice, one who doesn't argue about respect, one who commands it by the way he breathes. Let me tell you what you missed. You thought strength was about dominating her, so you avoided it. You didn't want to be controlling. You thought you were being respectful. You weren't. You were being passive. And passivity to a woman is betrayal, because it makes her responsible for the both of you. And the more responsibility she carries, the less desire she feels. You killed her attraction not with what you did, but with what you failed to embody. And here's the most brutal part. She waited. She tested. She gave you time. She dropped hints. She cried. She yelled. She even begged. All of it was a desperate prayer. Please take the wheel. Please show me you're a man I can let go with. Please lead me before I lose all respect for you. And when you didn't, when you let her frustration become the rhythm of the relationship, when you responded to her storms with apologies instead of decisions, she finally left, not because she stopped loving you, but because she couldn't trust you. You thought love was the end goal. But the truth is, trust is what keeps her in your arms. Respect is what keeps her eyes on you. And leadership is what keeps her soul anchored to yours. Without those, love dies. Quietly, slowly, then all at once. And you're left wondering, what happened? She didn't fall out of love. She fell out of submission. And no woman can submit to a man who doesn't know where he's going. Worse, one who keeps asking her for directions. She didn't destroy you. She revealed you. And what she saw was a man half-built. A man too soft for war, too slow for silence, too emotional to be feared, and too passive to be followed. And so she left, not out of cruelty, not even out of disappointment. She left because you were unfinished, because staying would have meant slowly losing all admiration for a man she once believed in. And that is worse than heartbreak. It's erosion, gradual, silent, final. But understand this, her leaving was not your ending, it was your initiation. Every real man, every king, every don, every myth carved into stone was forged not in the arms of comfort, but in the aftermath of rejection. You thought she was your destiny. She wasn't. She was the mirror, the one who came to show you exactly where you were small, exactly where you bent, exactly where you begged. And once the lesson was delivered, she was gone. She didn't leave to punish you. She left so that you could become dangerous. Because the man she walked away from cannot lead armies, cannot run empires, cannot even protect a woman's soul from her own storms. And so, life took her from you, not to hurt you, but to give you a chance to become something worthy of being missed. You thought pain was the enemy, but pain was the gift. The cold steel pressed to your throat, saying, "Wake up, rise up, harden." Because a man who hasn't tasted despair will never understand presence. A man who hasn't been stripped of love will never learn discipline. And a man who hasn't lost everything has no idea how dangerous he can become. Now, listen closely, because this is where most men fail. They try to win her back. They hit the gym, get a haircut, start reading books, all in the hopes of reversing the rejection. But kings don't reverse, they rebirth. You don't become powerful by making her regret her decision. You become powerful by making sure that you would never be that man again. The one who sought approval, the one who feared abandonment, the one who thought love was something you earn by shrinking yourself. You become dangerous when you rebuild not for revenge, but for rain. When your silence becomes heavier than your speeches. When your standards become executioners. When your presence alone answers every question before it's asked. And suddenly, The same woman who left you will feel it, not in words, in the air around you. She'll feel the gravity return. She'll see your eyes and realize, I was never his to leave. I was just not ready to stay. And by then, it won't matter, because the man you'll be then, he won't chase, he won't explain, he won't look back. He'll be too busy building an empire, too busy mastering himself, too busy becoming the kind of man who never loses a woman, because he never relies on one to complete him. Let her go, not with bitterness, but with fire. Let her absence sharpen your edge. Let it mold your body, rewire your mind, fortify your soul. And when the pain finally quiets, don't speak. Don't announce your comeback. Don't post about your growth. Just walk into every room like you own it. Not because you need to be seen, but because you no longer care who's watching.